The silence in the grand hall stretched unbearably, thick as the veil of dust that coated every forgotten corner of Blackwood Manor. My breath was ragged, my mind reeling from the realization that the wedding had already begun. Emily stood frozen beside me, her trembling hand gripping mine, her pulse erratic beneath my fingertips. The other Emily, the ghostly bride at the altar, continued to mouth silent vows, her vacant eyes locked onto Victor, who stood beside her, grinning with an unnatural stillness. Something ancient and malevolent stirred in the air, curling like mist around us, pressing against my chest with a suffocating weight. Victor turned his gaze toward us, his dark eyes gleaming with a cruel amusement. "You were always going to end up here," he murmured, his voice carrying across the silent hall like the whisper of a forgotten prayer. "The moment you stepped into Blackwood Manor, your fates were sealed." Emily took a shaky step back, her voice barely above a whisper. "This isn't real. This can't be real." But the growing pressure in the air told us otherwise. The altar, the twisted ceremony, the mirrored reflection of her trapped within this nightmarish version of reality. It was all terrifyingly real. "We have to leave," I said, tugging at her hand. But the moment we moved, the air shifted. The chandeliers above us flickered violently, casting grotesque, elongated shadows that slithered across the floor. The pews creaked as if unseen guests had suddenly taken their seats. Then, the doors at the far end of the hall slammed shut with a deafening finality. Victor took a step forward. "There is no leaving. There never was." His voice held a strange echo, layered with something sinister, something that did not belong to this world. Emily clenched her jaw, defiance flashing in her tear-filled eyes. "I never agreed to this." Victor tilted his head, his smirk widening. "Didn't you?" He lifted his hand, and in an instant, the heavy doors behind us melted into the walls, vanishing as if they had never existed. "Every whisper, every promise, every dream of yours brought you here. The vows were taken long before this night." A cold dread seeped into my bones. This wasn't just about a forced wedding. This was something far older, a binding that had existed long before Emily had even set foot in the manor. Emily's grip tightened around mine. "I won't let this happen," Victor chuckled. "It already has." Then the altar exploded in a violent burst of shadow and fire. The ghostly bride let out a shriek, her features contorting into something grotesque as the illusion of the perfect wedding shattered. The walls of the grand hall began to tremble, ancient carvings on the ceiling pulsing as if awakening from a deep slumber. The stained glass windows lining the room burst, sending shards of colored glass cascading like deadly rain. The ground beneath us cracked, revealing dark tendrils slithering up from the depths, wrapping around the pews, the altar, reclaiming everything in its grasp. "Run!" I yelled, pulling Emily as we bolted toward the only open corridor. The air roared with the sound of splitting wood and crumbling stone, as the manor itself seemed to revolt against our presence. Victor's laughter rang out, a chilling sound that followed us through the twisting halls. The corridors had changed again. The once familiar pathways warped into a labyrinth of endless doors, each one leading to nowhere. We turned blindly, desperate for an escape. But every hallway ended in darkness. Every door led to rooms filled with echoes of past brides, whispering, sobbing, warning us of a fate we could not comprehend. Emily stumbled, her breath coming in ragged gasps. "We'll never get out," she choked. "It won't let us." I refused to believe that. "There has to be a way," I insisted, scanning the shifting walls, the flickering sconces that barely held the darkness at bay. Then I saw it, a door at the very end of the corridor. Unlike the others, it was old, wooden, carved with symbols that pulsed faintly in the dim light. It wasn't a door that had been placed there to trap us. It was something else, a way out. Without hesitation, I yanked Emily toward it. The moment my fingers brushed the handle, the walls around us shrieked in protest. The entire manor trembled as if sensing our defiance. A deafening wail erupted from behind us, and I dared a glance over my shoulder. Victor was coming, but he was no longer wearing the guise of a man. His form had begun to unravel, shadows leaking from his body, distorting his features. His hands had elongated into jagged claws, his mouth stretching unnaturally wide, and his eyes were voids, endless and consuming. "Emily!" I shouted, twisting the handle and shoving the door open. The moment it swung wide, a blinding light poured through, momentarily forcing back the suffocating darkness. Emily hesitated for only a second before throwing herself through the doorway. I followed, slamming the door shut behind us. Silence, then a rush of cool air, clean and crisp, filled my lungs. I opened my eyes to find us outside the manor. We were standing on the estate's overgrown grounds, the sky above us still trapped in eternal twilight. But something had changed. The manor was silent. Emily turned to me, her face pale, her hands still trembling. "Is it over?" I wanted to say yes. I wanted to believe that stepping through that door had freed us. But deep in my gut, I knew the truth. No one truly left Blackwood Manor.